إذا كنت تريد أن تكون على مذهب السلف تعلم مذهب السلف.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، أما بعد. So بإذن ta'ala, we continue with the final lesson of our explanation of al-Qawaa'id al-Arba', the four fundamental principles, by the Mujaddid Shaykh al-Islam Mohammad bin Abd rahimahullah ta'ala. So he mentioned this fourth principle, and he said rahimahullah, القاعدة الرابعة أن مشركي زماننا أغلظ شركا من الأولين، لأن الأولين يشركون في الرخاء ويخلصون في الشدة، ومشركي زماننا شركهم دائم في الرخاء وفي الشدة. والدليل قوله تعالى: فإذا ركبوا في الفلك دعوا الله مخلصين له الدين فلما نجاهم إلى البر إذا هم يشركون. والله أعلم، وصلى الله على محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. So he said rahimahullah ta'ala, the fourth principle, and that is that the mushrikun of our time are worse in their shirk than the mushrikun of those who came before. And this is because the mushrikun of old committed shirk at times of ease, and they made their worship purely for Allah at times of difficulty. But as for the mushrikun of our time, then their shirk is da'im, is continuous in both times of ease and difficulty. And the evidence is the statement of Allah, the Most High, and when they embark upon a ship, they invoke Allah, making their faith purely for Him alone. But when He brings them to safety, or to the safety of land, behold, they give a share of their worship to others. Yani they commit shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he said rahimahullah ta'ala to conclude, Wallahu a'lam, and Allah knows best. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So this fourth and final principle that Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala brings comprises of a number of affairs. Firstly, the first affair to mention is that the mushrikun of old, that they would commit shirk at times of ease and not in times of difficulty. That when would the mushrikun of old commit shirk? At times of ease. However, when it came to a calamity that had befallen them, or when they were in severe need and in a time of difficulty, that they used to invoke and call upon Allah Azza wa Jal alone, making their faith purely and sincere for Him. The second affair to mention is that which Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala highlights in this principle, and is an important affair that he concludes with, and that is that the mushrikun of our time are far worse in relation to their shirk than the mushrikun of old. And this is due to a number of angles. This is due to a number of reasons. The first of which is that we find that the mushrikun of old, as we mentioned, that they would commit shirk at times of ease. But the mushrikun of our time, that their shirk is constant. They are constantly committing shirk, even when they are in difficulty. So they commit shirk at times of ease and at times of difficulty. The second angle, in which highlights to us that the shirk of the mushrikun of our time is far worse than the shirk of the mushrikun of old, is that the mushrikun of old, that they used to take as partners besides Allah Azza wa Jal the salihin. يدعون مع الله الصالحين من عباده. that they used to associate as partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only those who they considered as righteous. But as for the mushrikun in our time, then they take immoral people as partners besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even as a clear difference, again, to highlight how the shirk of the mushrikun in our time is worse than the mushrikun of old. The mushrikun of old, that they used to associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from amongst the salihin, imma malaika wa imma anbiya, either from the angels or from the prophets, or other than them from the salihin, from the righteous. And as for nowadays, that we find that the people that they commit shirk and they associate as partners besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those were not even from the salihin. Bal wal aks, but rather they are the complete opposite. And hence we find, for example, from amongst the ghulat al-Sufiyya, from amongst the extreme Sufis, for example, that who do they commit shirk with? Who do they associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in relation to their worship? Who do they take? They take those people who they claim no longer in need of praying. And they have reached such a level and such a rutbah that they do not need to pray anymore. And they do not need to fast. And this is fisq, without doubt. This is clear and open immorality. So they are not from the salihin. Yet we find that the extreme Sufis, for example, that they take them as partners besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they call upon them, when they make tawassul with them, when they make tabarruk of them, and they call upon them, that they are committing shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we find that they are not even from amongst the righteous, but rather they are the complete opposite. So this is just another angle to show that the mushrikun in our time are far worse than the mushrikun of old in relation to their shirk. And the third angle is that this shirk of the mushrikeen of old, that what was it pertaining to? As we mentioned previously, it was pertaining to al-uluhiyyah. That their shirk was in relation to al-uluhiyyah, in relation to their ibadah, to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it was not in relation to the rububiyyah, to the lordship of Allah. As we mentioned, the ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, and if you were to ask them, who created the heavens and the earth, لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهِ, that they would surely say Allah. So their shirk was not in relation to rububiyyah, but rather is in relation to uluhiyyah. But as for the mushrikun of our time, then their shirk pertains to both al-rububiyyah and al-uluhiyyah. Both the tawheed of al-rububiyyah, of Allah's lordship, and the tawheed of al-uluhiyyah, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sole right to be worshipped alone. So Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah ta'ala, that he concludes his book with this final principle. And with that, alhamdulillah, that we have completed this small, tremendous work by the Mujaddid Shaykh al-Islam, Mohammad bin Abd rahimahullah ta'ala, with a very short and brief explanation. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal that He allows us to benefit and take benefit from that which we have mentioned. And without doubt, we remind ourselves that this is from those books that have to be constantly studied. This is from those books that the talib al-ilm la yastaghni an, the student of knowledge, that he is constantly busying himself with these types of books, with reviewing them, revising them, going over different explanations in more depth and in more detail, which bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, if Allah Azza wa Jalla gives us the tawfiq, that we will bi'idhnillahi ta'ala explain again with a bit more detail and in a bit more depth. So this is from those books that the student of knowledge constantly revise and to go over. It's not for him to say, khalas, that I have already studied it and that is sufficient for me, but rather he constantly reviews it and goes over the different and various explanations pertaining to it in more detail and in more depth, for him to clearly understand and grasp these tremendous principles that Shaykh al-Islam has mentioned, rahimahullah ta'ala. وبهذا نكتفي والحمد لله رب العالمين وصل اللهم وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.